I fell in love with her when I was 7 and lost myself when I grew up. She was my dream, my first kiss, and my greatest betrayal. When the lies surfaced, a battle for my reputation and my future began. I thought we would end things quietly, but she chose to destroy me. This is a story about first love, broken illusions, and the journey to find myself again. I was 7 years old when I first noticed her, Lila, a girl 2 years older than me, with a quiet grace that made her stand out in the crowded hallways of our small elementary school in Portland, Oregon. She was 9, and though we never spoke, I was captivated by her presence, her thoughtful eyes catching mine across the playground. Fast forward a decade, and I'm a senior at Westview High, 18 years old, navigating the chaos of adolescence. Lila, now 20, had graduated and returned to our school as an administrative assistant in the front office. It was surreal seeing her there, behind the desk, her familiar face now framed by a professional demeanor. Lila was in a relationship with a guy named Ethan, who lived in Seattle. They've been together for 4 years, a long-distance arrangement that seemed to weigh on her. When we reconnected, it was like rediscovering a piece of my childhood. Our conversations started innocently. Small talk about school, shared memories of Portland's rainy days, and the quirks of our old teachers. I cherished our platonic friendship, happy to have her back in my life. But as weeks turned into months, we grew closer. I'd linger at the office after school, helping her sort paperwork, and we'd end up laughing over coffee at a nearby diner. She was easy to talk to, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known before. Meanwhile, her relationship with Ethan was unraveling. She confided in me about his controlling behavior, how he'd guilt-trip her for spending time with friends, how he'd dodge her calls only to resurface with excuses. There were hints of infidelity, though nothing concrete. I listened, offering support, never pushing for more than friendship. But the more we talked, the closer we became. By the 3rd month, there was an undeniable spark. Lila admitted she felt something for me, and I couldn't deny I felt it too. Her relationship with Ethan grew toxic, marked by manipulation and arguments that left her drained. One night, she called me in tears, saying she'd ended it for good. She chose me. The day before she left for a pre-planned trip to Seoul, originally meant to finalize her breakup with Ethan in person, she asked me to meet her at Forest Park. We spent the day hiking, the air crisp with autumn, our hands brushing as we navigated the trails. There was a playful energy between us, a flirtation I thought was safe now that she was single. 2 hours before her flight, we sat on a bench overlooking the city, and she kissed me. My first kiss, her lips soft and certain, a moment that felt like a promise. She was flying to stay at Ethan's place in Seoul, but she assured me it was just to tie up loose ends. I believed her. When she returned, we started dating, but I struggled to commit. I was young, inexperienced, and overwhelmed by the intensity of my feelings. I'd fallen for the idea of Lila, the girl I'd idolized since childhood, not the complex, flawed person she was. Our relationship became a messy situationship, intimate but undefined, oscillating between passion and uncertainty for 6 months. I'd pull away when things got too real, afraid of losing myself in her. But over time, I began to see her for who she truly was, her quirks, her vulnerabilities, her strength. I realized I was in love with the real Lila. In August, I asked her for a second chance, promising to commit fully. She agreed, and we started fresh in September. The next 2 months were a whirlwind. Lila was on an exchange program in Seoul, but we made it work with late-night video calls and heartfelt messages. I felt like I was finally becoming the partner she deserved. Then in November, she vanished. No texts, no calls, nothing for 3 days. My anxiety spiraled. I reached out to her friends, her roommate, anyone who might know where she was. When she finally called, her voice was cold. She called me immature, accused me of embarrassing her by contacting her friends, and said she hated me. She even lashed out at my family, people she'd never met. I was gutted. I'd poured my heart into this, owned my past mistakes, and now she was tearing me apart. Devastated, I begged her to reconsider. She agreed to try again when she returned from Seoul, but only if we didn't see other people in the meantime. I held on to that hope, counting down the 66 days until her return. On her birthday, I sent a heartfelt message, and she responded warmly, saying she looked forward to reconnecting. I was elated, clinging to the idea of rebuilding what we'd lost. When Leela returned in January, everything unraveled. I learned she'd been dating someone else, a 25-year-old Norwegian named Lars, who she'd met in Seoul. They'd started dating just days after our breakup, and the birthday cake I'd seen on her social media, the one I'd gushed over, was baked by him. The trips we'd planned to Kyoto after my graduation, she'd gone with Lars. Worse, our school discovered our relationship, against policy, since she was staff and I was a student. She was fired, and her academic plans were derailed. She'd been using her job to bypass 2 years of university credits, and now she'd have to start over. Leela blamed me for everything. When I confronted her about Lars, she claimed I'd forced her to agree to our exclusivity, twisting the narrative to paint me as the villain. When I exposed her infidelity, she escalated, accusing me of stalking her to uncover her new relationship. She tried to file a restraining order, claiming I was obsessed, and used her remaining connections at school to push for my expulsion. She took to social media, spinning a story that made me out to be a creep, turning mutual friends against me. When her efforts failed, she finally backed off, leaving me to pick up the pieces. Looking back, I see the pattern. Leela had moved from Ethan to me, then to Lars, each relationship overlapping just enough to keep her from being alone. I wasn't blameless. I'd been hesitant, immature at times, but I'd worked to change, to be better. I'd gone to therapy, confronted my fear of commitment, and tried to build something real. Yet she'd played me, just as she had Ethan. Now, as I prepare for university, I know I'll see her again. We're in the same environmental science program, and the thought of facing her is daunting. Our last moment together was a kiss in October, before her exchange, a memory now tainted by betrayal. I'm moving forward, but the scars remain. Her actions were a maze of manipulation and self-preservation, driven by a need for validation she couldn't find within herself. I don't hate her, but I'm learning to let go, to value myself enough to walk away from someone who couldn't see my worth. The first semester at Portland State University was a blur of new faces, late-night study sessions, and the constant hum of city life outside my dorm. I'd thrown myself into my environmental science courses, determined to carve out a fresh start after the chaos with Leela. But the knowledge that she was somewhere on campus, sharing the same major, lingered like a shadow. I hadn't seen her yet, and part of me hoped I never would. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that our story wasn't over. It was mid-October, the leaves turning fiery shades of orange and red, when I spotted her in the science building. I was heading to a lab, my backpack slung over one shoulder, when I saw her at the end of the hall, laughing with a group of students. Her hair was shorter, her style sharper, but it was unmistakably Lila. My heart lurched, a mix of anger and longing I hadn't expected. She didn't see me, and I slipped into the lab, my mind racing. I told myself I was over her, that I'd moved on. But seeing her brought everything back. The late-night talks, the kiss in Forest Park, the betrayal. I tried to focus on my studies, joining a campus environmental club to keep busy. That's where I met Nora, a junior with a quick wit and a passion for conservation. She was different from Lila, grounded, direct, with no patience for games. We started as friends, working on a wetland restoration project together. But there was a spark I couldn't ignore. For the first time in months, I felt hopeful, like I could trust someone again. Nora didn't know about Lila, and I wasn't ready to share that part of my past. I wanted to keep this new connection untainted. But fate, or maybe just bad luck, had other plans. One rainy afternoon in November, I was at a coffee shop near campus, going over notes with Nora, when Lila walked in. She was alone, her coat dripping from the Portland drizzle, and our eyes locked before I could look away. She hesitated, then walked over, her expression unreadable. Nora glanced between us, sensing the tension, but stayed quiet. "Hey," Lila said, her voice softer than I expected. "Can we talk?" I wanted to say no, to tell her to leave me alone, but something in her eyes, regret maybe, made me nod. Nora excused herself to grab another coffee, giving us space. Lila sat down, fidgeting with her scarf. "I owe you an apology," she started. "I messed up. I was in a bad place and I took it out on you. I didn't mean for things to end like they did." Her words hit me hard, stirring up emotions I'd buried. Part of me wanted to believe her, to see the girl I'd once loved. But I remembered the lies, the way she'd twisted everything to protect herself. "You didn't just mess up, Lila," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You cheated. You tried to ruin me. Why should I trust you now?" She flinched, but didn't back down. "I know I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. Lars and I, it's over. He wasn't who I thought he was. I'm trying to fix things, to be better. I just thought maybe we could start over, as friends." The word friends felt like a trap. I shook my head. "I don't think that's possible. Not after everything." She nodded, her eyes glistening, and stood to leave. "I get it. I just needed to try." She walked out, and I watched her disappear into the rain, my chest tight with unresolved feelings. Nora returned, her expression curious but gentle. "Ex?" she asked. "Something like that," I said, managing a small smile. I didn't elaborate, and she didn't push. That's what I liked about Nora. She knew when to let things be. But Lila's reappearance wasn't the end. A week later, I started noticing things. Mutual friends from the environmental club began acting distant, whispering when I entered rooms. My lab partner mentioned hearing rumors about me. Stories of me being obsessive with an ex, spread by someone in our program. I knew it was Lila. She hadn't changed. She was playing the same game, rewriting the narrative to make me the villain again. I confronted her after class, catching her outside the lecture hall. "What are you doing, Lila? Spreading lies about me again?" She looked caught off guard, but her composure returned quickly. "I don't know what you're talking about. I apologized, didn't I? Maybe you're just paranoid." Her deflection was infuriating, but I didn't take the bait. "Stay out of my life," I said, walking away before she could respond. I was done letting her pull me back into her chaos. The rumors didn't stop, but I refused to let them define me. I opened up to Nora about Lila. Not the full story, but enough to explain the tension. Nora listened, then squeezed my hand. "You don't need to fight her battles," she said. Just keep being you." Her words grounded me, and I doubled down on my goals. I focused on acing my classes, leading a new project in the environmental club, and building something real with Nora. But Lila wasn't done. In December, I got an email from a professor requesting a meeting about concerns regarding my conduct. My stomach dropped. The meeting revealed that an anonymous complaint had been filed, alleging I'd harassed a fellow student. The professor was vague, but I knew who was behind it. I provided my side of the story, including screenshots of Lila's past messages and the social media posts where she'd tried to smear me. The university investigated, and the complaint was dismissed for lack of evidence. Lila's plan backfired, but it left me shaken. How far was she willing to go? By spring, I heard through the grapevine that Lila had transferred to another university in California. I don't know if it was because of the failed complaint or something else, but her absence brought relief. The rumors faded, and my life started to feel like mine again. Nora and I grew closer. Our relationship built on trust and mutual respect. She wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but we were honest with each other. A stark contrast to the games I'd played with Lila. Looking back, I see Lila's actions for what they were: a desperate attempt to control the narrative, to avoid facing her own flaws. I wasn't blameless in our story. I'd been hesitant, immature at times, but I'd grown. Therapy helped me understand my fear of commitment, my tendency to idealize people. I was learning to love myself, to choose people who valued me. As I walked through campus one April evening, the cherry blossoms in bloom, I felt a quiet strength. Lila's betrayal had broken me, but it also taught me resilience. I didn't need her apology or her closure. I had Nora, my friends, my passions, and most importantly, I had myself. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. Spring turned to summer, and my first year at Portland State University drew to a close. The cherry blossoms had long since fallen, replaced by the vibrant green of new growth, mirroring the changes I felt within myself. Lila's departure to California had lifted a weight I hadn't fully acknowledged, and the campus felt like a place of possibility again. I was ready to close the chapter on her, to let go of the hurt and the what-ifs that had haunted me. Over the summer, I took an internship with a local environmental nonprofit, working on urban reforestation projects. It was grueling, but rewarding. The kind of work that left me too tired to overthink. Nora joined me on weekends, her laughter a steady anchor as we planted saplings along the Willamette River. Our relationship wasn't perfect. We argued over small things, but it was real. She knew about Lila now, the full story, and her quiet support helped me heal in ways I hadn't expected. I was learning to trust again, not just her, but myself. One August evening, as I scrolled through social media, I saw a post from a mutual friend. Lila was engaged to someone new, a guy she'd met in California. The photo showed her smiling, a diamond glinting on her finger. And for a moment, I felt a pang of something. Nostalgia, maybe, or pity, but it passed quickly. Her life was her own, and I no longer had a place in it. I unfollowed the friend, a final act of letting go, and closed the app. The girl I'd once idolized was a stranger now, her choices a reminder of the chaos I'd escaped. By my sophomore year, I'd found my rhythm. I declared a double major in environmental science and policy, driven by a vision of making a tangible impact. The environmental club had become my second home, and I was elected co-president, a role that pushed me to lead with confidence. Nora and I were still together, navigating the uncertainties of college life with a shared sense of purpose. We talked about the future sometimes, grad school, maybe a cross-country move, but we were content to take it one day at a time. Reflecting on Lila, I understood her better now. She wasn't a villain, just someone lost in her own insecurities, chasing validation through relationships she couldn't sustain. I'd been part of that cycle, but I'd broken free. Therapy had taught me to recognize my own patterns, my fear of commitment, my tendency to romanticize, and I was working to be better, not just for Nora, but for myself. I'd made mistakes, but I'd owned them, and that was enough. One crisp September morning, I stood on the riverbank, watching the saplings we'd planted take root. The city hummed in the distance, and I felt a quiet pride. Lila's betrayal had tested me, but it had also forged me. I was no longer the boy who'd fallen for an idea or the one who'd begged for a second chance. I was someone new, someone who knew his worth, who could love without losing himself. As I turned to head back to campus, Nora texted me a photo of the coffee shop where we'd first met, with a caption, "Your turn to buy." I smiled, slipping my phone into my pocket. The past was behind me, and the future was mine to shape. With each step, I felt lighter, ready for whatever came next. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. It really motivates me to keep going and create more stories like this for you.